Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. The dangers of cannabis edibles, concentrates, and vapes is being presented this afternoon by Albert Melena, and he's the executive director of the San Fernando Valley Partnership, a nonprofit organization that has been working in San Fernando Valley communities for over 25 years to identify and address the root causes of substance abuse. Albert, you're on.
Great, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone and really talking about this issue that has been impacting our communities for many years. And I'll tell you what's interesting, it's only getting worse, and it really has been evolving ever since. So our communities have been feeling the effects of legalization before we even saw Prop 64. So I think that's why this topic is so important. For us as an organization, we really started looking at the issue of cannabis and young people when we had a school call us and ask us if any students had ever overdosed on marijuana. They had had an incident. So really for us, as we started looking into this issue a lot more, we really did see the evolution in how our schools, our communities, and really our parents were dealing with these issues. So even now, what's interesting more than anything is how this issue has evolved. So for us as an organization, it really is important to raise awareness around these issues, these products, and how they're impacting our communities. And what I'm gonna do is share a PowerPoint, and there's a few videos in there. So it's really gonna chronicle our experiences addressing this issue. So let me get this PowerPoint up. Jaime has also been working with us to really outreach to parents, community groups, and especially our faith-based groups who our kids live in the same communities and interact, and unfortunately are impacted by what we see happen. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to share this video, this presentation. So what we're talking about here is the impact of cannabis legalization, how it's impacted our young people, how it's impacting our families, communities, and our schools. And it really has evolved quite a bit from even before Proposition 64. And it's important to remember, before Prop 64, we had SB 420 and other legislation that in essence legalized the medicinal use of cannabis. And we've been also able to learn from the experiences from other states. I'm going to share with you what really got us looking at edibles and just looking at in terms of the explosion in products and the impact it was having on young people. And here we go. When it comes to edibles, this comes straight from the industry. If you can imagine it, there's probably a cannabis edible version of it. So at this point, we're looking at the Rice Krispie treats, soft drinks, gummies, candy. So there are pretty much anything that exists as far as food, there's probably an edible version of it. And I'll tell you the impact that our schools have felt. I'm going to share this video. Uh-oh, excuse me. Wow. Well, I'll get into the video a little bit, and I'll tell you, here's the scary piece with cannabis edibles. And I'll tell you what, on it, when we look at emergency room visits for cannabis, and this has been even before Proposition 64, a large majority of these incidents have been with cannabis edibles. And what happens is, because when you're smoking cannabis, when an individual is smoking cannabis, you can feel the effects fairly quickly. You inhale the smoke, it goes through the lungs into your bloodstream, and pretty much within a matter of minutes, if not seconds, you're going to feel the effect. Unfortunately, with edibles, it takes much longer to feel the effects. And what was interesting, initially products said it takes about 30 minutes to feel the effects. And it really is more like 60, an hour to an hour and a half. What's dangerous there is people are more likely to accidentally overconsume. They'll take a few bites and not feel anything, and then, well, let me eat some more, and before you know it, and they start to feel the effects. they realize that they may have consumed too much and by then it's too late. The other side of that also is how the body processes eaten cannabis. So eaten cannabis is metabolized through the liver, which converts the delta-9 THC, the psychoactive chemical in cannabis, into 11-hydroxy, which makes it a much more potent effect, and it crosses the blood-brain barrier. The effects are much longer lasting and much more intense. And I'll tell you what was interesting for us with schools is we initially started working with schools by conducting presentations to school nurses. School nurses had not seen or could not believe that what they were seeing in terms of the reactions with students, they couldn't believe that that could be cannabis because they were so intense, literally on the verge of psychosis. Kids were having chest pains, panic attacks. And when people think of panic attack, it's not something you necessarily associate with cannabis. Let me try, this thing is not working very well. What's interesting here, and this is where we started to see the effects early. This was a story of Levi Famba, a young man who traveled to Colorado with his friends the first day that recreational cannabis had been approved in Colorado. Unfortunately, this young man jumped from the balcony of his hotel room. And when they went into the hotel room, they found 3 unwrapped cookie wrappers. So what they're assuming, or the hypothesis there, that it was a drug-induced or a cannabis-induced psychosis, anxiety, and he jumped from his balcony. So we really started to see the impact of these products very early. Now in California, we really started to see, again, this is before Proposition 64. Prop 215 really was more decriminalizing, and then Assembly Bill 420 that really focused on the medicinal use of marijuana. Unfortunately, as access increased through these products, we started to see the incidents, we started to see the news stories, possible pot-laced brownies at school. We saw the emergency room visits, and I'll tell you, we really were concerned as we started to see this issue emerge locally. So a lot of what it was really, and this was an interesting paper that was conducted, use of marijuana edibles by adolescents in California. But what was interesting, the main reason that we saw such an explosion is that students were able to purchase these products from other students who either made it themselves, knew somebody that had a card, a medicinal card, or just actually walked into some of these more unlicensed locations. So I'll tell you this, before we really get started, when it comes to what we're seeing right now in terms of underage consumption, isn't coming from the licensed dispensaries. A licensed dispensary will not risk its license and what it costs to get that license on selling to a young people. A lot of these problems that we're seeing now really come from the underground market, the unlicensed dispensaries, access via the internet and social media. So that's an important piece. But the reason it's important for us to really talk about this evolution was initially pre-Prop 64. A lot of the issues that we were seeing were cannabis edibles that were very easy to get. And we saw the incidents playing out on school campuses. And this is interesting data here. So when we talk about California emergency department visits resulting in admission for any cannabis-related incident, this is pre and post medical marijuana. So when they call it commercialization or proliferation, this was 2005 to 2009. That was pre-SB 420, the medical marijuana. So you see from 05 to 09, there were 174,000 emergency department visits. Now, after SB 420, that number jumped to 471,000. So there's definitely that connection between the increase in access and the incidents that we were using. So remember, this is pre-Prop 64 and recreational. So now with recreational, it's much easier for any adult to get. So that means there's more adults that have these products at home. And that's definitely something that we saw play out. This is interesting because this was the 2017 community needs assessment that the San Fernando Valley Partnership, along with other prevention providers, conducted. One of the questions was, have you ever gone to work or school under the influence of marijuana? So when you look at the 61%, 12 to 17-year-olds, so we're assuming because of the age, it was more likely school than work, had gone to school under the influence. And a lot of initially folks thought, well, right, you're going to see that because this is post Proposition 64. So Proposition 64 passed in 2016. But what's scary is it did not go into full implementation until 2018. So we were already starting to see the impact of legalization. And again, what we're really saying is with legalization came more products, more adults able to get them. And within that, it facilitated the access. And it's important for us to really think about that. Along with legalization came the messaging for legalization, that it's medicinal, that it's safe, that there's nothing wrong, it's a social justice issue. So definitely confusing a lot of our young people. So here we go, Proposition 64. So commercial sales for recreational use really came on in 2018. But what's surprising for us is that as schools were experiencing that vaping epidemic in 2017-18, when the recreational cannabis came on, we started to see more concentrated products in the form of flavored cannabis when we talk about the vaping, the pens and things like that. So and when you look at that dramatic jump, there was that cannabis coming on just as the popularity of vaping electronic cigarettes was coming online. So we really saw that double whammy. And a lot of the early research really started to show us that. And this is something we really want folks to understand, is that with Proposition 64, we saw increased access via the underground market, social media. We also saw, and this was we were just talking about, the intersection between flavored nicotine and flavored THC concentrates, which is something that we're actually seeing now. So now there's a term called the triangulum. The electronic devices, the flavored nicotine, and the flavored THC. Now, the other side of that, as I mentioned earlier, with legalization, we saw shifting perceptions of harm associated with cannabis use. Why that's important is the literature, the research tells us that as perception of harm goes down, use goes up. The less likely young people perceive a substance to be, the more likely they are to use it. So as we saw here, we see more cannabis products available, the evolving illicit market, and now we're starting to see a lot of these smoke shops. Have you all seen a lot of these smoke shops popping up all over the place? It says smoke shop, and oftentimes we assume that those are places that sell cigarettes, nicotine. What we're also finding is a large majority of these places are selling flavored CBD products, and actually some are actually selling THC. So as the access and the availability increased, we saw an increase in youth consumption. As we saw an increase in youth consumption, we saw more incidents on school campuses. So our school campuses were the first ones to really see that dramatic spike in young people consuming these products. And that was in the way of more incidents, more kids getting caught at school, more kids bringing products. So I'll tell you, it really is something that we're addressing now. And it's just that the problems have really began to evolve with the types of products. So for us, this is just simply understanding how legalization really has contributed to these problems. And this is from the National Institute on Drug Abuse. As I mentioned, the less harmful teens perceive a substance to be a drug, the more the use of that drug increases. So think about it this way: since cannabis is legal, many kids believe that it really can't be harmful. And what we are seeing at the beginning with the medicinal is parents were asking us, is it true that doctors are growing marijuana, cannabis? And we said, well, no, where did you hear that? Oh, my son said that he had cannabis and he bought it at a pharmacy and that doctors were growing cannabis. So there's a lot of, and even to this day, a lot of misperceptions about marijuana and these types of products now, especially when it comes in the form of edibles. So I'll show you a lot of the products, but I'll tell you what's interesting here is this is called a slapper, and it really is a licorice product. So when you look at these little ropes, I'll put it closer to the camera, or maybe I'll turn it off, is it's not that it's, what scares us isn't the fact that it's a candy. That in itself is technically prohibited under the provisions of Proposition 64. Products cannot appeal to young people. The packaging can't be something that appeals to a child or a young person. However, here we have Batman, and it's a very nicely colored candy, a licorice. What's even scarier is that each one of these little pieces of candy contain 500 milligrams of THC, the psychoactive chemical in cannabis. Now, in terms of the industry, for an adult to feel the effect or become intoxicated, it is recommended that cannabis be sold in 10 milligram pieces. So under the provisions of Proposition 64, an edible product in total cannot have more than 100 milligrams of THC, yet we're seeing these products that more than likely came from an underground store, or they either bought it online, had 500 milligrams in total, and each serving was 100 milligrams of THC. Now imagine that impact on a child. So that is why we really do need to better understand legalization, the types of products that are out in our community, because what's happening is the industry is mainstreaming cannabis. So initially, cannabis wasn't as mainstream as it is now. We're seeing more locations, more billboards, more advertising. So it's more normalized. So it's definitely looking at, and that's something we're working on with schools on, addressing the normalization of cannabis, students' perception of that. So this was, again, now when we're talking about cannabis, we're talking about the edibles. And I'll tell you what we've seen now is a shift from edibles to vaping concentrates. And this was early on a study that was conducted, and it really talked about high school students who had used an electronic device. 27% said they had used it with a form of cannabis. So this was a report from the California Department of Public Health. And what's scary, this is based on 2016 data. So as the market has evolved, we have seen more of these products and more diverse types of products. We'll even show you some of the packaging that really has caused us concern. So our mission as an organization is to, one, make sure that our communities are aware of these types of products, the potential dangers, but also to really make sure that we really better understand what communities can do to reduce the likelihood of kids getting access to these products. This is in 2017, as the market evolved. 1 in 3 12th graders reported past use of vaporizers, of electronic cigarettes. And within that, we started to see that cannabis became the #1 substance used by young people. And a lot of it was, again, the products. When you look at these pictures on my right, you have candy jack, you have gelato, you have wedding cake, you have lemon pie. So what was interesting is the industry created cartridges to use with the Juul devices. Now we've seen what's been happening with Juuls in Juul in the news. They've been sued by school districts, including Los Angeles Unified School District, for marketing their products for young people. So there's been a series of articles that have really highlighted or demonstrated that Juul has marketed their products to young people. Now, with that popularity, you saw some of these companies that were selling concentrated cannabis now selling the pod. So they actually created the little inserts that you could use with the Juul battery. So the other concern, as we've seen or heard in the news, or you all haven't seen this, is these devices look more like USB devices, almost looking like antennas on computers where you're charging it. When we first started conducting our professional development sessions for teachers and school administrators, there had been a few that were really taken aback because they'd seen these devices that they thought were antennas for their computers. You know how you get the Wi-Fi, and I'll tell you that definitely was why we continue to raise awareness about these products. But I'll tell you the other concern here is that each one of these little pods contains 600 milligrams of THC. So that in itself is cause for concern, and that impact that that product can have on a young person, adults as well. And as we start to see now the evolving market, so we started to see now the products become, more unique, products that really would attract young people. You see this young man with the little string, that is called the vape hoodie. The vape hoodie is a device that one of the drawstrings has the actual device, the pen, and the other side where he's inhaling is how you inhale the product. So you can actually hide your vape pen in the, in the pocket, in a hidden pocket, a hidden compartment. And then for us, what really caught our attention was the vape watch. So the vape watch looks exactly like an iWatch. However, you can fill it with the cannabis concentrate and easily pop the, let's see if I have it here. Oh yeah, look, you pop this piece here and inside has your liquid, your concentrated liquid. And what's scary is the type of liquid that are used in these products don't smell. They don't have a smell. They're hard to detect, and it's a vapor that dissipates very quickly. So we did start to see the incidents or hear about kids vaping in class. Teachers can't smell it. There's no smoke. So that's really the concern with these products and why we really started to see a jump. The other issue that we really are still concerned with and actually working on addressing right now is home-based production. So what is fueling this access to THC concentrates with young people is really the home-based manufacture that really involves butane. So kids go to their local hardware store. In this case, this was a local liquor store here close to us. And this was me. I was actually waiting in line that day. And I saw a young man, couldn't have been more than 19 years old, buying. And the only reason he only had 6 cans was because all they had. So they're using these butane canisters to manufacture cannabis concentrate. So what they do is they get a tube like this. This is oregano, so don't think I have cannabis. So in this tube is oregano, and then they get the butane canister and run it through the dry leaves, and the liquid that comes out is a THC liquid that they then heat to evaporate as much of the butane as possible, and what they have left is a concentrate. Now that's dangerous for a number of reasons. One, it's still, if these individuals, these young people don't know what they're doing, one, they can blow themselves up. If they're in an enclosed room and somebody turns on a lighter, there's an open flame, it's going to explode, and there have been several explosions. Two, is there still going to be high amounts of butane in the actual product? And three, if the cannabis that was used to produce the concentrate had mold, fungus, or pesticides, these young people are going to be inhaling unhealthy quantities of these, chemicals and the mold and the fungus. And there's already been several incidents with young people who inhaled these products. Now, the other issue that we saw, as you all may have seen in the news, was the vape lung and a lot of the illnesses that were associated with these concentrates, and specifically the vitamin E and some of the other chemicals that were in these products. So we have seen the health impact that this has had on young people. And I'll tell you, oftentimes parents are blindsided when we see all these things, when we hear about them, it's just something that we weren't aware of. So for us, we really do need to work with our communities, with our faith-based groups to really get this information out, to really, more than anything, raise awareness. This is a video in terms of how they make it. Oh, let's see, this one may not. So this is more of a clandestine, shop where people are making it in their backyard. They have the butane canister, they have the hot plate. So we really are, so this is of concern for two reasons. We as community members, as adults, get to see how they make it, but so do kids. Kids are jumping on YouTube, they're jumping on social media, and they're learning how to make these products. Now, the other part of all of this is the packaging. The packaging for us is a major concern because this stuff is available in downtown LA. You can buy this on Amazon. We were actually, as we were looking for this type of packaging, we really found that downtown is really the #1 source. You can go to downtown, and one of these kits that comes with an empty cartridge and the package, you can get it for $1. And if you buy enough, you can get it less. Now, why we started looking at this is because high school students that we were working with started telling us about Mario Karts. So when I first heard the term Mario Kart, I assumed there's a video game called Mario Karts where it's the Mario Brothers characters and you're racing, in the video game. And they laughed and they said, no, Albert, Mario Karts, get it? Mario cartridge. So there's this Mario brand here that has the characters from the video game, and the cart means cartridge. So it's short for cartridge. Well, what's scary about these products is there is no such company called Mario Kart. This was just packaging that was created to legitimize this black market or homemade cannabis concentrate. What was interesting is there was a news story where they actually obtained and tested these Mario cartridges and found that the majority, if not all of them, contained pesticides, mold and fungus, and that they were not manufactured at a licensed facility. So that's where our concern is really this whole illicit manufacture of these types of products really is cause for concern. And when you look at it, definitely doesn't look dangerous. It doesn't, doesn't look like something you should stay away from. And, it using the characters that young people, teenagers, and young adults actually do like these video games. So when you start looking at that, the packaging, the messaging is definitely a problem. Now, you also look at the flavors. So these products, the large majority of them are flavored. This one is cookie flavor. Some of these others have sour diesel. So this has a sour flavor. So that's the other piece, that a lot of these products are also flavored. So remember, the flavoring, the colors, the characters minimize the perception of harm. If this tastes good, if it tastes like candy, how can it be dangerous? And early on in this whole vaping epidemic, we had heard parents that had actually bought these vaping devices for their kids because they said, well, no, there's no nicotine, Mom. It's just vapor and it tastes like candy. They would take a puff and say, look, Mom, smell it. We had schoolyard aides, the aides that watch the kids and make sure that they're not getting out of hand while they're playing, would say, hey, the kids are coming out of the bathroom and it smells like perfume or it smells like fruit. What is it that they're doing? And that was until we realized that that was the smell from these products, these flavored, both nicotine and now THC products that really were flooding our school campuses. Let's see if this one. This was, I think we had a problem with the video here, but this was social media. So what we talk about is marijuana and social media. Now with the popularity of Instagram and TikTok, we started to see kids put videos up that were called hitting a blinker in school. So the hitting a blinker in school is kids filming themselves consuming these products in their classroom without their teacher noticing. So this is a young student who's using a pen with THC concentrate in her classroom, and her friends are filming her. So that's part of the concern that now is the culture of use, the challenges that we're seeing on social media, whether they're in school or out in the community. That's definitely something we're seeing a lot more of. And this is what our schools were experiencing. So with the flood of products, this is one school administrator, 1 month of confiscated products. So here you see everything from, the majority are electronic devices. So all these devices that look like USB, some look like pens. You got the Visine to get rid of the red in the eyes. You have the cartridges. This was just one school administrator, 1 month of confiscated products. So for us, that was definitely a major concern, and where we saw that connection between the ease of access of these products, the proximity of a lot of these smoke shops close to schools. And this really is the result of increased access and availability. So that's something that I think for us, is important for parents and communities to understand, is that since the passage of Prop 64 and the legalization of cannabis, there are more locations selling these products. There are more legal locations, but there are even more illicit locations selling these products. And that's where we start to see how this plays out. And I'll tell you, it's definitely an important piece, because it's not that kids all of a sudden became worse. It's that there was more product available and it was much easier to get. And the literature does tell us that the easier a product is to get, the less effort that it takes to get a substance, the more likely kids are to use it. And this is the perfect example of what that means and what that looks like. So this isn't just something that's impacting our schools, it's impacting our communities. I think we may have seen some of the commercials now that the state has developed to raise awareness about the dangers of the nicotine. Vaping and nicotine is dangerous as well. So the problem with this now is that parents, school administrators, or anybody that has to deal with this don't know whether it is flavored nicotine or concentrated nicotine or concentrated THC. So those are dangerous on both. The concentrated nicotine is dangerous because of the high levels of nicotine. The flavors are also dangerous, the vitamin E, the diacetyl. So remember, a lot of these flavors are safe to consume, but they're not safe to inhale. So when they become vapor and they come into your lung, that's when they start causing the damage. Popcorn lung, they refer to it as popcorn lung. It's because of the scarring in the x-rays. You see the scarring in the lungs and it looks like popcorn in the lungs. So that's a lot of these chemicals and what we're seeing. And I'll tell you, it's important to learn to recognize these products. We literally have had parents stand up during sessions and want to leave because they've seen these products. And I'll tell you, for us, it's always an important piece as we're raising awareness amongst parents is to remain calm. Some of the sessions that we do offer with Patricia and Jaime, the organization, I know initially we had done some sessions with Patricia. We also do a lot of parent sessions organizationally, is to recognize these products, because oftentimes these products are hiding in plain sight. And if we don't know what we're looking at, we're going to miss something that's hiding in plain sight. And I'll tell you, for us, the diversity of products I've shown, this isn't an edible. This is actually a spray. It's almost like those mouth sprays. So you open your mouth and you give yourself a spray. So each spray is 10 milligrams of THC. We have the breath mints now that, let's see, I'll put it here. Here we go. We have the breath mints now that are, each mint is 10 milligrams of THC. So the products, the diversity of products really is what the concern is for us. So I think this is why just presenting this information, getting it out really can make a difference. The sooner we can identify experimentation, early use, the sooner we can intervene. And that's definitely something that we really need to address. This was something that we came across. I wish I could say it was an accident, but as we were looking at the types of products that were being sold, and I'll show you in the next slide why we were looking at a lot of this piece. There's a lot of misinformation that currently exists with regards to oversight, who's responsible for these locations, to how old does somebody have to be to walk in. And right now in California, in order to buy tobacco, you have to be 21 years old. And under the provisions of Prop 64, to legally buy cannabis, you have to be 21 years old. But when you look at the door right here on the right-hand side, it says 18 years only. But you can be 18, but technically if you're gonna buy anything, you have to be 21. And I'll show you this next one. This was actually one of the ads that we saw at a shop. So this was the back to school special. So when you see the backpack there, you see the product. So the backpack is at the bottom, right here at the bottom of the ad. So it's a 926 giveaway. Bongo is a particular glass product. 15% off all vape products. Buy one, get one free on all disposable. So the disposable vape products are, once it runs out, you can just throw it away. But it's interesting how it shows the school backpack at the bottom. So that's where we started to really take a closer look at these locations, what they're selling, who they're marketing to. And I'll tell you, that definitely is something that we are continuing to look at. And at this point, we're actually in the middle of an assessment that's looking at the types of products that are being sold at some of these locations. We actually, and this is separate from cannabis in the flavored nicotine, is a lot of these places are also selling nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide is the laughing gas, what dentists use for anesthesia. And these locations are selling what's called whippets. I don't know if any of y'all are bakers. For the whipped cream, they sell the little cartridges that you put in your whipped cream dispensing device. Unfortunately, teens are using that to inhale the nitrous oxide. So these places are selling that type of product. They're selling what they call herbal supplements that are designed to mimic, Xanax. They're designed to mimic Adderall. And other products that really do need to be looked into. So for us, we're completing our assessment to be able to present these findings to our local officials. But our concern is schools getting ready to come in back into session next month, and these places are selling all of these products. So definitely an important orientation piece. If you look at some of these other products, and actually I'm glad this one, lawmakers say Puff Bar used pandemic to market to teens. So this is another product other than Juul that are called Puff Bars. And I believe it was Kylie Jenner that really promoted these or made these as popular as they are. But when you look at the product itself, so available at your local smoke shop, but they're also available at local corner stores, convenience stores. But you look at the flavors: strawberry, cool mint, mango, lychee, icy. So these are all flavors that are very popular with young people. So what's interesting here is these products often expose parents to a world that they really weren't aware of. We may have heard of it in the news and think that, well, that's something that's far away. But no, this is something that's happening right now and that our kids, unfortunately, are seeing. So it really is definitely something that needs to get out there more. We really need to make sure that our parents understand, but also the other side of this is that teens understand the potential risks associated with using these types of products, the potential risks of nicotine salts, the high levels of nicotine, along with the cannabis concentrates, the effects of cannabis concentrates, definitely a major cause for concern, and why we really are trying to get as many folks to see, recognize these products, or really to be able to share this information with. And now there's a new product, and this is the interesting piece. So until now, we were talking about Delta-9, tetrahydrocannabinol, which was marijuana, the psychoactive chemical. So now what we're seeing is the Delta-8. So the Delta-8 is a different cannabinoid that technically right now is not illegal. So it's not legal, but it's not illegal. And these products are heavily promoted on social media, over the internet, and sold at the smoke shop. So apparently these products do get people, they do have a psychoactive effect, not as intense as the THC, the Delta-9, but we're already seeing now a Delta-10. So there's more of these Delta products being sold. And again, the way they're promoted, if you look at these, they're fruity flavored, they're safe, and definitely something that really needs to be addressed. So for us, we're also looking at organizationally. So when we think of our work as a prevention organization, the thrust of our efforts really are to reduce the access and the availability of these products. So this is definitely a big one for us in terms of are young people getting these? How and where are they getting them? And what can be done to reduce the likelihood of them getting them? But again, just because they're colorful, just because they're fruit flavored doesn't mean they're safe. So it's definitely something that we all, as parents, as community members, need to be aware of. And here's something for us in terms of sharing this information with young people. It really is important that the research now is catching up. And let's think back with tobacco. When tobacco, cigarettes, nicotine first came out, it was promoted as something that would make you more sophisticated, that there was nothing wrong with it, until we started to see decades later cancer and the other risks associated. So what we're starting to see now as the research is catching up is with early cannabis use, the increase of mental health issues. So marijuana use has been linked to a range of mental health problems. So we're seeing it in terms of depression, anxiety, panic attacks. Psychosis has also been seen with definitely issues with teens who have a family history, but also the higher levels of THC are being now associated with later mental health problems. So that's another fact that I think on the parent side, we definitely work hard to address. There are parents who think, well, you know, I tried it in the 70s, I tried it in the 80s or in the 90s when I was in college, or even the 70s. And, you know, it really wasn't that bad. It's important for folks to understand that today's cannabis is nothing like the cannabis of the 70s, 80s, even the 90s. Today's cannabis is much more potent and definitely much more dangerous, and especially the cannabis that was purchased through the illicit market. We're definitely seeing that a large majority, if not all of it, is contaminated. This is other research that is coming out. Is it possible to develop a marijuana use disorder? So definitely seeing the problems associated with early and excessive use, sorry about that, of cannabis with young people. So what it tells us here is 1 in 6 adolescents who regularly use marijuana can develop a marijuana use disorder, 1 in 10 adults. So we are starting to see that impact with these types of products. So oftentimes when adults think of cannabis, there's cannabis is technically nothing that caused addiction or there was nothing wrong with it. So that's where raising awareness and making sure folks fully understand that today's cannabis is much more potent and much more dangerous, and that the research is catching up and really showing us the potential risks associated, especially for young people. The other side of this is we have to remember the adolescent brain, the human brain doesn't fully develop until age 25. So as a developing teen brain now begins to use cannabis, just as young people learn faster, they can also develop a use disorder much faster. So that's part of the work, the outreach, the awareness that we're trying to build. And it's not bad. Oftentimes we associate cannabis with bad kids or just, you know, gang members or what have you. Today, cannabis has been mainstream. It's corporate. When you look at the billboards that are out there, when you look at some of these high-end shops, it's not that street corner, a drug dealer product that, you know, many of us associate with cannabis. It's really something that is mainstream. It's easy to get. You hear about medicinal uses and things like that. And so oftentimes our kids are definitely confused. So for us as an organization, getting them the correct information so they can make informed decisions really is important. But also for us as adults to be able to know when we can step in and share a little bit of information. I'll tell you, nowadays it is much more difficult to talk about cannabis with young people. And the other side of that is a lot of it too is related to early prevention efforts, the scare tactics that, you know, you're gonna go to jail and things like that, that it's gonna kill you. And I think there's definitely, the industry has used those early efforts against prevention, that, you know, they haven't given you the right information, that they lied. So for us, it really is important to share correct information so young people can make informed decisions. And I'll tell you, the more we see these products, the more we really can better understand what we're up against. And I'll tell you, if I were a parent and, you know, I saw this, I mean, unless I really look at the packaging, and that's something else we talk about in these sessions, this is an LOL edible. It's a 500 milligram edible. It's a frosted flake. It's made with that frosted flake cereal. But when you look at the THC levels, they're extremely high. So it's definitely something that we really need to make sure that our communities are aware of, that parents know how to recognize these products. And I'll tell you anything, definitely the packaging is, you know, something if we're not looking for it, we're gonna miss it. So this is a peach ring. Unfortunately, it's cannabis infused sour tropical fruit juice. So the other side we talk about, especially with the younger kids, is if it didn't come from home, don't eat it. And that's where schools have had a lot of these incidents. I'm going to share a quick little video, if you don't mind. Does anybody have any questions before I show you the video? So I want to show you the video of a story that we had done with ABC. This was a reporter that was initially we were talking about Halloween, the types of products that were available during Halloween, our concern. And, she really went above and beyond just the news story. She interviewed a physician at St. Joseph's Hospital in Burbank, who really talked about the number of incidents that he was seeing. So what was interesting here is he was seeing cannabis-related incidents on a daily basis. So these were young people that were being rushed to the hospital. Let's see, I'm trying to see if I can get this. I don't know why I was having problems with this Zoom. Okay, here we go. I'm going to share the video here. This is an interview with the school administrator. It's the news story.
We started on this story because of concerns at Halloween time. So many snacks and candies seem perfectly safe to eat. What we learned, though, is that there is a growing hazard that goes far beyond trick-or-treats. A side-by-side comparison, gummy bears from the candy counter and these from a marijuana dispensary.
There is no visible difference, and that is something that desperately needs to be addressed.
No difference because dispensaries simply spray the potent hallucinogenic ingredient, THC, onto popular items and repackage them. Unpackaged, they appear identical. Such marketing is mainstreaming medical marijuana use and raising the rate of overdoses, according to this ER doctor at St. Joseph's Medical Center. How often are you seeing cases?
Regularly, almost daily.
An awareness campaign now in full swing by the San Fernando Valley Partnership. The hazard, says Alberto Melena, is the concentration of THC sprayed on. According to the dispensary's own label, a single gummy bear equals 1 marijuana cigarette. How dangerous is an overdose? Paramedics were called to this Pacoima school when a student passed out after eating marijuana-laced brownies. The director will never forget what the EMT said.
At that moment, they state, "We're losing her," and they had to perform CPR. My heart dropped.
The partnership wants the word out to children to shun any candy that is not sealed in its original package. But it is teens who overdose more often, according to Dr. Stephen Kishinev.
I think a lot of people that are ingesting marijuana are waiting for the effect, and while they're waiting for the effect, they feel like there's not enough effect, so they take more.
The concern now, as marijuana is popularized,
We're going to see more kids coming out with overdoses.
So that was early on, and that was before Prop 64, and that was what got us as an organization looking at this issue. A principal called me and he said, "Halbert, can somebody overdose from cannabis?" And at that point, that was, I believe, 2015. I said, "Look, nothing in what I've seen in the literature, so I really can't tell you anything unless we really start to see more documentation." So he said, "Come to my school, let me tell you what happened." He said he called up to a classroom. There was a student in full convulsions on the floor. When he was asking the students, "What did she take?" He thought it was drugs. They said, "She ate a brownie, she ate a brownie." And he said, "How can this be? What did she take?" One of the students brought him the package, and she had eaten a brownie that contained 500 milligrams of THC. So this was a 80-pound ninth grader who had just eaten 500 milligrams of THC. Now that's a rare having needing CPR is something that's rare, but again, somebody that young, that petite, eating that much cannabis, it really is dangerous. So these products can potentially be life-threatening, especially with young people. And that's why we really want to get this information out. And really do thank you for this opportunity to conduct this presentation. No sé
Well,
si-
thank you,
Jaime.
Albert. We really appreciate that. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Albert? Or for Jaime? No? Well,
There may be something in the chat. Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I'll
Okay.
tell you, yeah, I'll tell you, I think it's important if the opportunity ever does arise, we definitely do tailor these presentations in terms of simply raising awareness about the products. We are working with Jaime and Pastor to get this information out to other communities. But I'll tell you, we really are seeing more and are concerned now with schools going back in session. The problems we heard about problems during the COVID, with kids being at home, actually getting caught doing it on the webcam or forgetting to turn off their camera. So we definitely are concerned with schools coming back in session because the access and the availability of these products still exists.
Well, thank you so much. It was very informative and very frightening.
definitely frightening.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, our goal really isn't to scare folks. It really is to, oftentimes if we're not looking, we don't know what we're looking for. It can easily be hiding in plain sight. We do also work with parents to help them develop kits in terms of how to talk to their teens if they're curious about it or if parents suspect what to do. The sooner we start talking about this and providing appropriate or correct information, clearing up some of those misperceptions, I think the less likely our kids are to experiment with these products. But for me, I really do want to thank you for this opportunity because I'll tell you, I know that our faith communities can really play a difference in keeping our
Yes.
kids safe and empowering our families.
Right.
Yes. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and I want to thank you too, just actually to showing us examples of some of the products or the product packaging, I should say, really, is
Yeah.
really helpful because, if we're not out there looking for it, we don't know what we're seeing half
Oh,
the
yeah.
time. So that was very helpful.
Yeah, look at this. This one's interesting. This is Gushers flavored cannabis concentrate. So oftentimes when we think of Gushers, it's a candy, but this is a Gushers candy flavored cartridge. So this is concentrated cannabis for vaping that tastes like Gushers candy. So if we just kind of looked over and saw Gushers and saw the candies, think, oh, that just looks like candy. Unfortunately, it is a cartridge, but let me just show you this last one here. This one, I think Jaime really got, he couldn't believe it. So this looks like a keychain. You attach your keychains there, but you push the button and it is actually a device to smoke. So that's the concern. Well, that's our concern with this types of products. So again, it really is the novelty of it. And that's really part of the attraction. Here's another one. This pen writes. I mean, I could literally write on a piece of paper, but I take the back off and it's a
No way.
cartridge. So a lot of these products really are more novelty, but again, they do minimize the perception of harm and, make kids just, if they can get them to try them, unfortunately, they may keep them using. So the more we recognize these products, the more we keep them out of the hands of young people, the better off they're going to be.
You said that you come to schools to talk to people. Do you?
Yes,
do
so
contact you?
you can reach out to us. Tomas Robles has been actually working with a lot of the schools. Our initial efforts with schools have really been more the professional development for school staff and teachers.
Okay.
So we also work with the Beyond the Bell from LAUSD. So
Yes.
oftentimes our work really is to support existing efforts. So we do get invited to conduct the presentations. Oftentimes we will partner with Beyond the Bell or other efforts. Or also our role with schools is to look at those external factors. So it's been great because with schools, here's the interesting piece. This cannabis isn't a school issue, is that schools are experiencing the unintended consequences of legalization. So our work is to really address those external factors, those external access points that end up playing out on school campuses. So as we're doing the education or awareness building, we're also looking at the surrounding area around our schools to make sure that there are no smoke shops or any locations that are selling to young people. So that's an important piece as well. The more we can minimize the access and the availability and work with the schools to develop messaging for kids that really focuses on, hey, it's not okay to bring this stuff to school, the less incidents we're going to see. But we are available. I can share I'll put my email address and Jaime's email address as well, and we'd be happy to follow up with anybody who's interested.
May I ask how you're funded?
We are funded through the LA County Department of Public Health, Substance Abuse
Oh,
Prevention
okay,
and Control.
great.
So yeah, initially our work was again really to look at what they call the environmental factors, those root causes and contributing factors. Now the education is important, but yeah, we've been fortunate or blessed really to be funded by the LA County Department of Public Health.
Okay, good. Good. Well, thank you. Thank you to the presbytery for putting this on, Wendy.
Well,
You're
thank you
very
for-
welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for joining us. We hope you all have learned a lot. I know I have, especially the way they market it. I just
Yes.
can't believe some of it.
But, you know, I really do want to thank the Presbytery because I'll tell you, cannabis right now is a tough subject. I mean, often our elected officials are kind of don't want to touch it, you know, and it's just because it's so mainstream and it's still kind of just barely getting off the ground. It's a difficult subject. So I really do thank you from the bottom of my heart for this opportunity to present this, and Jaime for bringing it. So really, I do appreciate this opportunity and thank you for the opportunity.
Well, do know that even though there's only a few of us on this Zoom, it will be seen through our media.
Oh,
And
great.
so I know once I get the Zoom tape, I will send it on out to more people to look at, because it's really, a lot of people couldn't come at this time, but that's fine. They'll get to see it.
Right.
And it'll move on and grow and grow. So thank you.
Yeah, and again, please feel free to call on us if there's anything we can do, even if it's a 2-minute, anything that'll help us get this out. We are here. I know Jaime is working hard as well, as far as making sure that this information is accessible also to the Spanish-speaking community.
Yes, yes. All right.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah, we
And
appreciate
so-
it so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks again, Jaime and Albert. Thank you.